All right, I've stopped the share. We are, of course, live. Finally, we screwed it, or I screwed it up last month.
Hello.
Okay.
All right. So, for some reason, Bill, are you looking at the Facebook page?
Yeah, we're on.
Oh, we are. Okay. I don't see it from here, but I'm not going to worry about that at the moment because we are live with episode 12 of the Fright Lounge. And I'm going to call my notes up here. Episode 12. Can you imagine? So, I mean, this is, of course, is the show in which the best horrorologists in town will discuss horror in depth and get a conversation going for seasoned horror fans, as well as helping introduce newbies to the horror genre. I, of course, am Rigor from the podcasts Then Is Now, The East Meets the West, and the Cult Movie Lounge.
I'm Bill Van Ryn from Fanzine Drive-In Asylum, and also the weekly webcast, The Drive-In Asylum Double Feature.
Which is awesome. I got to get back on that at some point if I can stay awake, Bill.
This time I'm going to send you some coffee.
Oh, good. It's the vodka. It's the vodka that screwed me up.
What happened?
Mike, you didn't hear this?
Yeah, Michael, our show is 3 segments, and in between the second and the third segment, Rigor fell asleep and didn't come back, but he was still connected. So his camera was still on, and there was just this empty, darkened room on the other side. And I was like, oh, either he fell somewhere and can't get up, or the Manson family snuck into his house. There's so many things that could have happened, but he was just sleeping.
Did I just lose a chunk of time or something? Like, I don't know. How long was you sleeping for?
What it is they talk about a movie, and then everyone goes and watches the movie, like on Tubi or something. And then you come back, and then they talk about it. And then there's a second film, and you go off and talk about it, go off and watch that, and then come back. So between the first and second film, apparently I passed out.
Oh, okay.
He never came back.
Okay, I never. Okay, I got mixed up, but okay.
Oh, he never came back.
I thought you were talking about something happened right now, and I was like, where did the... No. Oh, you're talking about on another day.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
I was like,
this was like a year or so ago.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. Actually, it was more than that. It was like a year ago, like October or September or something, wasn't it?
Oh, well, we really do have to get you on the show again.
Yeah. I know. So we are in episode 12, which means for the Fright Lounge, at least, we are at the 1 year mark. Can you guys believe it? We've been doing this for 1 year.
It's an anniversary. I didn't even realize. Wow.
I didn't until I did the I know. So, of course, joining Bill Van Ryn and myself is Michael. I'm so glad you could be here, Michael.
Yes, glad to join you.
Excellent.
Talk about some crazy movies.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Continuing our discussion of crazy, creepy, slimy horror films. We've got 3 awesome films lined up for you guys tonight. And it's going to be a great discussion because we have Dave Cronenberg's Shivers from 1975, Blue Monkey starring Steve Railsback from 1987, and of course, the great Nathan Fillion, as most of you viewers, at least nowadays, you might know him from The Rookie, but we'll talk about him in a little bit. He's in the movie Slither from 2006, and we're going to have fun discussing all these movies. I'm just trying to get the Fright Lounge thing up here. Hold on. Oh my God. Hold on. I'm going to do this and do a / and Fright Lounge. There it is. Because I'm not seeing Bill, you're seeing the Facebook page.
Yes, and I see the Fright Lounge icon behind you, so it looks okay on this end.
I see it now. I think what it was I clicked on the invite. So, all right. Oh, and you said hello. So excellent. All right. So, folks, we're going to start with the movie Shivers. It's also known as They Came From Within. It's 1975 film. And it's from Dave Cronenberg. And we're going to talk about him in a little bit. He's an awesome director. The synopsis for Shivers is the residents of a suburban high-rise apartment building are being infected by a strain of parasites that turn them into mindless, sex-crazed fiends out to infect others by the slightest sexual contact. At least that's the IMDb description. It's pretty close, but so I want to know, if you guys have seen this movie before. And you know what, Michael, you texted me, I don't know, a few days ago, a week ago, mentioning that you had seen this and you had some strong opinions. You didn't offer them. So why don't you tell us now about your thoughts about Shivers?
Yeah, I know of David Cronenberg, but I don't know a lot of his early stuff. Boy. The thing is, in between then and now, I've watched the other two, so I'm trying to like sort backwards. I remember thinking that it didn't have really any story. Like there was a point where I was like, okay, I see this guy and these two guys are talking to each other, and I guess this people know each other, and they're all in this community where there's like, it's a contained thing. They have their own hospitals and their own everything just in this community, inside the community, so you can't really escape it. But like, it was just so bizarre. Gosh, I actually don't even remember what I texted you, but I just remember thinking it
wasn't much. You just basically said you thought it was weird.
It was weird and gross. I mean, I'm okay with gross, like, but I remember thinking it just seemed like it was going nowhere. Like it seemed like they just sort of made it up as they were filming. I didn't get the sense of like a linear story that's, beginning to end. It was just fine. I mean, it just seemed like they were sort of having fun making, but like, especially at the beginning, I didn't know what the hell was going on. Like the guy is wrestling with what I thought was a boy, and it turned out to be a girl once he unbuttoned the shirt, and then she sort of dies, and then he slices her open and pours the stuff into her, and I was like, what the fuck? And then they sort of came back to it, but not really. Like, and the cops were just in there walking around in the blood and everything afterwards, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, I don't know. Yeah, anyway, I'm really sorry. My memory has kind of faded a little bit since then, but I remember not being terribly excited about it. Yeah, it was...
So, Bill, your experience with Shivers, when did you first see this?
I first saw Shivers on home video. This wasn't one that I ever saw on HBO. And I wish that it had been, because all the movies that I saw on HBO when I was a kid have shaped me in some way, at least my taste in films. And Shivers, it probably is one of the most disturbing films that I've ever seen, at least at the time that I saw it. It was one of those movies that just took me further than I had ever seen in a movie before. And it really worked for me. I can't decide whether this or Rabid are my favorite Cronenberg films. If I would have to choose a number one favorite, it would probably be this one, Shivers. I like it a little bit better than Rabid in the long run because there are more interesting characters in it. That's really the only reason. Rabid is genius too, and I just I can't say enough about it. But Shivers gives you a little bit more, and plus it looks a lot more ultra low budget, which I love, especially the 70s ultra low budget, because they all had like a certain look to them. It's like you knew there wasn't a lot of money that was spent on this film, and yet there was something intriguing about the way they made that cheapness work for the film. And this certainly has that in spades. It's a little bit better than an ultra low budget film, in my opinion, like the way it looks. But there are still certain aspects of the sound design and the set design that just sort of speaks to a low budget. And this was a Canadian tax shelter film, basically, is how this got funded. And it was public funding that provided the money for Cronenberg's film. This was his first major release. He had done short films before this, but this was the first major theatrical release for David Cronenberg. And people were outraged in Canada when they saw it, because they were like, this is what our public funding went to make, this disgusting horror movie, this cheap, low budget horror movie about sex parasites. So that adds to the legend of Shivers, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I saw this a long time ago and I'd forgotten it. And then last summer, I was on a sort of a 70s horror gore kind of kick, which actually hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
But so I watched it, and then I'd forgotten most of it since then. So I watched it again. I actually watched it with my wife, and again forgotten it. It was just I watched a lot of movies last year, so um, we came back and we watched it again. And she's like, "Oh yeah, I saw this. Yeah, yeah, it was fine. It was too gruesome for her, but I loved it. And watching it this time around, I love the '70s flair of it. I love the decor in the apartments of this house with the orange and the brown.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. And there aren't many films like this in terms of the premise, which is basically you got these parasites that make people sex fiends. I haven't really seen that. I mean, I'm sure it's out there, but I haven't seen that in quite a few films. So I enjoyed watching it again this time around. And of course, Dave Cronenberg, let's talk about him for a little bit. Most people might remember him from having directed the remake of The Fly in 1986 with Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis.
Mm-hmm.
And like Bill, you mentioned, he did Rabid. He also did The Brood. He did Scanners and Videodrome with James Woods, Dead Ringers with Jeremy Irons, The Dead Zone with Christopher Walken. He did so many great films. And in fact, he's got a new one out. It's called Crimes of the Future. And I haven't had a chance to see that, but I do want to watch that.
I saw it. It was brilliant.
Oh, really?
But it's not, it doesn't work as well. I could see why a lot of people wouldn't like it because it doesn't tell a cohesive story. Like there is a story there, but at the end of the film, not much has been resolved, and you feel like you know a little less than you did when you started. But never mind that. It just shows the thing that makes it so great is how it gives you this glimpse into a world, like a future world that could be us. And it's all these strange things that happen to human society. Like, we had lost the ability to feel pain. And that's such a simple concept. Like you think, oh, wouldn't that be wonderful to not feel pain? Well, actually, no, it's really not that great of an idea because but so much had evolved in our bodies that pain had left us. And so had infection. And it seemed like this took place after an apocalypse. Like people were living in really low lit, shabby-ish environments, but it had also taken infection with it. So what had happened was people could do surgery anywhere. Like, and you could literally, because the patient can't feel any pain, and you're not going to like kill them by going in there and doing this because there's no more infection. So these this couple would go around, and they were performance artists, and he would grow a new organ inside his body, and they would take it out in front of an audience, and this was art. This was like a concert in the future. There were all these ideas like that, and after you watch it for a little while, you're like, yeah, this really is an intellectual look. It's not just pulled out of somebody's ass. He really thought about this.
Wow. That's interesting. All right, I'm definitely gonna have to check that out. So, Michael, what's your experience watching Cronenberg films? Like I mentioned a bunch of them: The Fly, Rabid, Brood, The Scanners, the Scanners. No, Scanners.
The Scanners.
Scanners.
I know I seem like I'm totally tuned out, but actually, what I'm doing is looking on YouTube to refresh my memory. Like I'm trying to find clips from this movie we're talking about to remind me of what I watched a few days ago.
Well, maybe,
I'm not like ignoring you guys.
Maybe we could talk about the plot a little more, and that might jog your memory.
Okay, yeah.
The movie's about a doctor. You mentioned this little isolated apartment community. It was called the Starliner Towers.
Right.
It was this cutting edge living arrangement on this small island, Starliner Island, and it was meant to be a self-contained community. And this was an idea in the 70s because they did something like this in Pittsburgh.
Right.
It was called Allegheny Center. And there was a mall, and there were businesses inside the mall, and then there were offices where businesses operated out of, and there were apartment buildings, and you could live there, and there was a grocery store, so you could shop there. That's the kind of community that's in Shivers. And of course, Cronenberg, being a total sickie, imagines what would happen if somebody got sick in an environment like this, and how fast, like what if it was some out of control sickness that spread rapidly and they were isolated in this little environment. So that's what he's doing with Shivers. There's a doctor who's experimenting on um, parasites, and his concept is that if your one of your organs fails, like your liver goes bad, they could give you this parasite and it would take on the function of your liver.
Oh, that's right. I remember him talking about that. Okay, yeah.
And of course, what they don't understand is that, or whether this was deliberate or not, what happened with this doctor's experiments was the parasites would infect the host and make them sexually erratic, like crazy. It turned you into a maniac. Like you started to lose all sense of like reason, and all you could think about was infecting other people sexually. And, again, it seems crazy to come up with something like that, but then, you think of a rapidly spreading sexually transmitted disease, and you start to realize, yeah, Cronenberg was a little ahead of that curve too.
Yeah. Yeah. And so they go on, and of course, Barbara Steele's in this movie, and we have to mention Barbara Steele because,
oh, yes.
I mean, I know, Michael, you and I talked about how the nurse was hot, and we'll talk about her. She's
yeah.
Lynn Lowry.
Lynn Lowry, yeah, and she's still hot. If you look her up on IMDb and Google her, and she's been in tons of horror movies. She was in the remake of The Crazies. But Barbara Steele, man,
she was in The Crazies.
Barbara Steele, who?
Yeah.
Lynn Lowry?
I'm thinking of I Drink Your Blood. She was in I Drink Your Blood. I was going to say,
yeah, she wasn't in The Crazies, but Barbara Steele. I mean, what the heck can you say about Barbara Steele that hasn't been said before? I mean, Bill, do you want to talk about her? I mean, of course, Black Sunday, The Pit and the Pendulum. I mean, this lady's been in tons of movies.
Well, yeah, I'm surprised you guys don't remember Barbara Steele's role in this film, because her whole thing was to have a lesbian encounter with Lynn Lowry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember that.
And she had that whole bathtub scene. She was overtaken in her bathtub by the parasite, which is a literal parasite. Like, for anyone who hasn't actually seen the film, it's not just a microscopic thing. It looks like a slug. Right. And they live inside like your body, and they come out through your mouth when you're having sex with somebody, or they have to physically go inside the other person, which is really disgusting.
It's disgusting. And they're not tiny. They're like fat worm,
like the size of a date or something,
Yeah.
And what's great is that we're not going to talk about it right now, but this was sort of not parodied, but it was paid homage to in one of the films we're going to discuss later.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Okay, yeah.
But yeah, so Barbara Steele. No, I remember fully Barbara Steele being the lesbian, but Michael and I were having a conversation about Lynn Lowry because she was really cute in this movie. And she's been in tons of horror movies. But also Paul Hampton, Paul Hampton plays the doctor. So as you described, Bill, you've got this community. It's basically this building on an island. I don't know, somewhere in Canada where they have islands.
And Toronto, I think.
Toronto. It was set. And it was funny because there was one point I'm watching this with my wife, and she's like, "Oh, their apartments across the hall, and then they just go to the grocery store because it's right there."
The weirdest thing was having the doctor and the hospital like built into the community. That was really strange.
That's what I was going to mention. Paul Hampton plays Dr. Roger St. Luke. And this guy was on Chips. He was on Lou Grant, Benson, Babylon 5, tons of shows. But I loved his hair. I was like, oh, I got to do my hair like him, It's got that 70s. It's all just going forward.
Yeah. I'm looking at him right now. Yeah.
Lynn Lowry was in The Crazies, by the way. She was in the original.
Oh, she was in the original.
Crazies. Okay. Yeah. And she may have been in the remake too. I sort of skipped that one.
Oh, I did too. I was just going by IMDb. So
Cat People as well. She was in.
I need to see that. I've never seen
Sasha Kinski.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
There's not as much sex in this movie as I expected. I mean, not expected, but like once they said that it makes people sex fiends, I thought, oh, there's going to be a lot of, I mean, there's some, but I guess there's restrictions, R rating and stuff, but
I love the old lady. She was going to get it. She was into it.
Which one? The old lady with the husband there that she had the thing bit her arm, or
no. There was a lady
umbrella.
who lived by herself. I think she got it in the laundry room.
Yes,
I think it got her in the laundry room, and then you see her later, and she's all dolled up, like she's gonna
yeah. She's ready.
What was a really good detail was because the thing in the laundry room got her on the face, so when you saw her later, she was dolled up, but she still had the scar.
Yeah, you could see where it got her.
Yeah, that was cool. Like that's the thing about this movie is that as much as it may upset you and disturb you and creep you out, the attention to detail is phenomenal in this film, I think.
Yeah, like there's a lot of good like consistency between scenes, right? And like if somebody got injured in one scene, they carried over, or if they had their shirt torn in one scene, it was so you see a lot of mistakes with that in other movies and stuff. But
and the dude that was one of the main characters, he was Alan Coleman. He played Nicholas Tudor in this. He was sort of like right off the bat, he was kind of a douchebag, and he treated his wife like shit, and she was like trying to do whatever she could for him, and he still treated her like shit. That's why she had the lesbian affair with Barbara Steele's character, Betts. But he was in Pump Up the Volume, Air Force One, Seven with Brad Pitt. But for me, the thing was, I remember seeing his picture in Fangoria as a kid, and he's got this like super hairy 70s chest, and he's lying on his back, and he's got all these things bubbling up out of his stomach. And it was the parasites. And I just remember seeing that picture. And that picture alone made me not want to watch the movie as a kid.
That made me want to watch the movie as a kid. In every aspect of it. Because I first saw that picture in a book that my aunt bought me for my 7th birthday. It was called Horror Films by Alan Frank.
Your aunt? 7th?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was 7 years old. And I've always been this way. Okay. And she bought me this book, and there was this picture in there, and I was like, holy shit, like what is that? It was like the sickest thing that I could have imagined, was that there would be something inside of you poking up your stomach. That was Cronenberg's whole thing. Like, I don't think we've said it yet. Body horror.
Body horror, yeah.
Body horror.
Sort of like genre that he, maybe if he didn't invent it, he surely pioneered it, because he just took it and ran.
This movie came out before the first Alien, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the whole like it getting into you and then busting out of you and all that stuff was, I mean, I'm not saying Alien took it from this, but yeah, because when I'm watching this, I'm thinking, that aspect reminds me of Alien, but Alien came after.
Well, it's funny that you said that, because in my notes here, Cronenberg felt that Dan O'Bannon drew heavily from this movie when he wrote Alien.
Oh,
so it's interesting. It's to see this kind of come full circle. I mean, all these movies, and we're going to talk about a lot of them, draw on the other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cronenberg thought Alien drew from this movie,
Yeah. I was just glancing through. It's actually on YouTube, and I'm like skipping. There's that one scene toward the end where the woman is getting attacked in her car, and the nurse is getting attacked in her car by some random dude who pulls the door open and tries to get at her, and then the doctor somehow has a pistol, and he comes into the garage just in time, and from behind he shoots the guy in the back, and I'm thinking, you're gonna hit her, don't shoot her in the back.
She's right there.
What are you, stupid?
I thought the same thing. I'm like, that bullet going right through him to her.
Yeah. I mean, she's fine, but it just made no sense. I thought he was gonna pick him up and then shoot him or something, or distract him and wait for him to turn and then shoot him, but he just goes bang, bang, bang.
So, Bill, was Dave Cronenberg the guy that was sort of the security guard that sat out in front of the building?
I don't remember. I don't remember what
Remember the goofy security guard? Like when you first went into the building, the couple were like had to talk to this guy, and they asked him about his gun. He's like, "Oh, well, we have to have it because other security."
Oh yeah, that guy.
I think that's Cronenberg. It's
Oh
not
really?
credits. Yeah, I can't find that in IMDb, but I'm pretty sure that's Dave Cronenberg. He's like Hitchcock. He does that sort of appearing.
I'm bad at recognizing him in his own films. I always think it's the wrong person, so I'm not even going to comment.
Oh my God.
Lynn Lowry, it has, first of all, it has to be said that this movie strongly references Night of the Living Dead as well. This is basically a zombie movie once you get in the final third set. Yeah. The finale of the film totally turns into a zombie episode, and you've got this like entire community now has been infected, and there are only a couple people who aren't, and they're being like unstoppably pursued by this mob of people that just want to like infect them. So that's very strong Night of the Living Dead vibes.
Oh yeah, and I don't want to say it out loud, but the whole ending, what happens there, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I don't really understand why that guy, that guy who's kind of a prick, as you were talking about earlier, why he's rejecting his wife constantly through the movie. Even after he gets like affected by the parasite, you would think if he's sex crazed, he would just plow everything that he could find. But she keeps coming to him, and he keeps kind of.
He was starting to tell her, but at that point, she realized something was wrong. So she rejected his advances.
Oh, okay. See, I'm sorry. I missed that little tidbit.
They weren't really, he wasn't consistent with how much time it took the disease to progress, because I'm not sure how long the doctor himself had been infected, because remember there was like that weird thing with his daughter, and
yes.
I don't know how long that had taken to transpire. And then like you said, that the guy with the hairy chest was sort of like okay-ish for a long time, and then he suddenly like succumbed.
Right.
Took him a long time. Yeah.
And, Michael, you mentioned something too that I thought the first time I saw this movie a long time ago was I thought that was a boy as well until
at the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a chick, but then they did establish that she was like 19 or 20 or something at a later point, and she was basically banging everybody in the building. And that's why the old man has said he went to the doctor and he's like, I got this stuff in my stomach and I don't know what it is. But one other a side note that I thought was hilarious, and that one thing I loved about this movie was the little touches in the waiting room. There's this old man, and it doesn't matter who's sitting next to him. He's talking to the person next to him about this, like, well, old age doesn't really happen, but if you take these vitamins, like the lady gets up and leaves, and then another lady comes in and he's saying the same spiel to her. But I guess this movie was shot. It took them 15 days to shoot it, which is quite quick for a movie.
That's all. Wow.
Yeah. And it was a real apartment building. I guess it was designed by Miles van der Rohe on Rue de Gaspé on Nuns Island. So it really was a building on an island. And it was Cronenberg's third film. I guess some of the working titles for this movie was The Parasite Complex, Starliner, which is the name of the building in the film, and Orgy of the Blood Parasites.
That's the best one.
I know.
Yeah, how could he not have chosen that one?
But it was open in the U.S. in under the title They Came From Within. So I'm going to try and share. Let me see if I can get my thing going.
I tried to find it under that title at first because you had mentioned in the text that it was also called that. But then I eventually I couldn't find it, so I went and looked it up under Shivers, and I found it. Now I'm looking at the ending. Yes.
So I'm going to do a share screen here. Hold on. Let's see. Bear with us, folks. It's a live show. We got all night, so
you might not. People listening to it, but
right.
Hold on. There it is. Share screen. Okay, so this one is Bill. This one is one that you found. The Parasite Murders. I don't know.
Oh,
The
that's a
original
great-
theatrical title, I believe, in Canada.
Being Terrified is just the beginning.
Ew.
And it's funny because looking at it, right, it's like for a split second when you see Joe Silver, don't you think Joel Silver, the producer,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
and Barbara Steele as Bets?
The nurse chick in the pool at the end. Oof,
Oh
yummy.
my God, yeah.
Be like, infect me, I don't care.
I think that is his attitude.
Yeah. There's a point at which he's just like, what the hell?
He's like, I can't escape this. So
yeah, there's no getting out. Yeah.
So, Bill, these theaters look like Canadian ones because they're French.
Yeah, this is from Canada. This was the original title that the film was released under, The
Okay.
Parasite Murders.
Now, what is this part here? The 14 years. What does that mean?
That's the rating.
Oh, okay.
It's from
So
Canada.
it's okay for 15-year-olds to see this movie.
Yeah, believe it or not. And like you mentioned, the daughter that he was having a sexual relationship with, she was actually 16 in the film. She is definitely underage, and it's implied that she's been having sex with all these people in the building too.
I thought, though, they said at a later point that she was older, because I remember thinking, "Oh, that's creepy," and then, "Oh, okay, she's like 20." I don't know.
I'm not sure. I thought she was an underage girl.
Did they?
She was in the dialogue when which we didn't even mention, the doctor, the main character, doctor's buddy, who kind of figured things out, was telling him he was saying, yeah, he was the other guy that killed himself at the beginning of the movie was having an affair with this chick when she was like 12, but now she was older.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's the impression I got.
And they were like wrestling with each other, and then because the curly hair was at a certain length, I thought, oh, this is a boy in the school uniform with the tie. And then after she died and laid down on the table, he unbuttons the shirt and there's boobs. I was like, whoa, okay. And then he cuts her open, and doesn't he pour some?
He pours acid in.
Acid.
Yeah, he's trying to kill the parasites inside of her.
Yeah.
See that okay. All right. I remember later in the movie, like remembering that he had done that and thinking, well, they didn't really explain. Like, I didn't make the connection later in the movie. I was like, what? Why was he pouring something into her? And
yeah, so she was the first person, really.
Yeah,
the one that had first obtained the parasite and had spread it to all these other people in the building.
Right.
Oh.
So now this one that we're looking at, Being Terrified, is just the beginning. Shivers. It's also it's a double feature with Cannibal Girls, which, by the way, Ivan Reitman, I think that's his first directorial film, was Cannibal Girls, and he was a producer on this. And if people at home remember, he directed, of course, Ghostbusters. Most famous. So Eugene Levy's in Cannibal Girls. I didn't know that either.
Andrea Martin too.
Andrea Martin. I know the name, but refresh me, Bill.
Andrea Martin. She's from SCTV.
Okay.
She's the house mother, or she's in Black Christmas.
That's right.
She's Phil in Black Christmas. And then in the remake of Black Christmas, she's the house mother.
That's right. And then we've got, here we go. They Came From Within. Are they demons to be exorcised, or just creatures beyond the power of God?
Yeah, see, this was 1976 in American theaters, and this was still, The Exorcist was still looming large over the theaters. So any movie wanted to make it look like it could be about demons or exorcism.
Right. I didn't notice before the mouth here, the female mouth with
the teeth and stuff.
Yeah.
That's a good title too. I like that title.
They came from within.
Yeah. All right.
I had said before that parasites from whatever Orgy of the Blood Parasites was the best title, but
yes,
in reality.
All right, so we're gonna.
Oh my God! There's the scene with the what's her name, Steele in the bathtub, and the parasite gets into her in a very intimate way. Holy crow! I forgot about that.
I love that too. Is that the one? It like pops the You know how you have that cord?
The plug, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like.
It has strong game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Yeah. So
Yeah, and one of the other movies that we were saying, it has a bathtub scene.
Yes. Yeah. And there's actually another reference
but
in that movie, but
obviously reminiscent of this one of the other ones we're going to talk about today.
so folks, if you like creepy, gory films that have a sexual slant to them, check this one out, Shivers. It's on Tubi right now, at least as of this recording in early March. I think it's March, right? Is it?
Yeah,
it's on YouTube. I just found it on YouTube too.
Oh, there you go.
Free.
There was a couple of things I wanted to mention too about this movie. There's another film. I think I could be reading this wrong, but the Parasite Murders was also a film in Canada that was sort of released around the same time. This movie made $1 million at the box office, which is good. It was considered one of the highest grossing English language Canadian films of all time, and more profitable than any previous Canadian film before that. So despite what the critics may have said about this movie, people flocked to see it.
1975, millions, pretty good.
Yeah. I guess according to Cronenberg, though, there was a bad review about this film, and he got kicked out of his apartment in Toronto because the landlord had a morality clause in the
Wow.
It's like Mr. Roper ran that place.
Yeah. I was gonna say Stanley.
Try to enforce something like that today. Forget it.
Oh my God. I guess the Parliament of Canada debated this film's social and artistic value and its effects upon society. I mean, really, even Stephen King said, crazy's crazy. They'll find something else to copy,
Right. That's what I always say. Unless there's already something wrong with you, you're not going to watch a horror movie and go, that's a great idea. I want to do that.
Right.
And if it's not the horror movie, it's going to be something else that makes you have a great idea.
Right.
I mean, look at Shakespeare's Titus Andronicus, one of the most violent things ever. It's like there's people getting shot with arrows and killed left and right. And it's like, really?
I know.
Some crazy horror movie is going to change you. That doesn't even it doesn't even exist. I mean, these parasites. Yeah. I mean, you could imagine it happening, but it doesn't really happen. But
yeah.
So I like this film. I think I'm going to watch it again at some point. It was creepy and weird. But it's got, like we said, it's got that Cronenberg body horror that, fans of his have come to love. Michael, what are your final thoughts on this movie, Shivers from 1975?
I think I like what you said, that the way it's made is more interesting. Even if you're not particularly into the story. I mean, go into it expecting to be grossed out, of course, but the way it's filmed, it definitely has that, like you said, that whole 70s atmosphere of kind of natural lighting in most situations. And then you feel like you're really I don't know, there's something about a lot of 70s movies where you really feel like you're in the place, and, it didn't feel like a film. I don't know what I'm saying, but that wide angles and stuff and the natural lighting, and the characters are not super compelling, but the situation is cool. And even though I was grossed out by it and I didn't think it had a terribly forward-moving story, I didn't want to turn it off at any point. I was into it, I wanted to watch it to the end. So
nice.
It has that, it grabs you kind of thing.
Nice. Bill?
Oh, final thoughts about Shivers.
Yes.
Of the three movies, I like all three movies we're going to talk about tonight. This one is the strongest to me, because this one is the one that does what it's supposed to do so economically. At least it did for me. The other two movies are fun also. I think this one works best, as an actual film out of all of them. And even though it's pretty rough, it looks a little bit better than a student film, but it was clearly very early in what Cronenberg could do in theaters, but it was still fantastic. You can't stop a talent like David Cronenberg, or a vision like David Cronenberg, I should say. No medium is going to contain him.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And like the whole opening of the film, it opens with a slideshow of someone trying to sell you, the quote unquote customer, on this Starliner place. And it's a slideshow.
Complex,
Yeah, come here and we've got this and we've got that and we've got medical and dental and everything that you could possibly need. So come to our place and live here,
Yeah.
It's utopia.
Yeah.
It didn't work here. Allegheny Center became a burned out sort of former mall space. All the businesses left, and there was some unfortunate events that occurred in there, and it didn't have anything to do with slug parasites, though.
So we have someone on YouTube made a comment.
Are
We
you
were
sure?
talking about yeah. Someone on YouTube made a comment about the girl in the film. He says she was 14 in metric years, 20 in standard years.
That's amazing. I tried to find the YouTube broadcast and I couldn't. I meant to check the comments.
Go. You want me to tell you? Go to YouTube.
Never mind.
I'll figure it out as long as I know it's up and people are there.
Yeah. We've got. I don't know how many viewers we've got.
There we are. I found it.
I think the low budgetness makes the movie work better in a way. Like,
yes,
it's because it's the fact that it's not so polished that kind of gives it a little quality to me anyway, that helps it feel more real.
Real. Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's the word I was thinking too. Then that's what I was saying about that slideshow at the beginning. It just has that. I mean, I guess, kids today watching the movie, they don't know what the hell a slideshow is, but, he even had the sound effects of the thing going cha-ching, cha-ching, like switching between the slides.
Yeah.
But, so folks, check out Shivers if you can. It's really, it's its own thing.
Make sure you make Shivers. Because there's different movies that have shiver in the titles.
Oh, that's right. From 1975. If you look it up, Cronenberg, Barbara Steele, you can't go wrong. So our next film that we're going to talk about, it's called Blue Monkey from 1987, also known as Insect with an exclamation point. Exclamation point.
Exclamation point.
What is it with Sundays? I think it's because it's like the end of the week and I'm like, ooh, I can't talk.
You're always like this.
Yeah, that's true.
There's no reason for it.
The synopsis of this film is called Blue Monkey from 1987. Detective Jim Bishop and Dr. Rachel Carson must find a way to stop a giant monstrous insect that's eating people in her quarantine hospital before it procreates and spreads a deadly infection that it's carrying. So, I mean, yeah, all right, that's an IMDb description. I could read the whole one, but I'm not going to. But I think that kind of does it, wouldn't you say? I mean, Mike, first impression, because you mentioned to me, we talked about this on text, and I think you liked it, right?
I thought this movie was fucking awesome. The longer it went on, the more it developed, the more interested I got, and the more I started to think, if this movie had like a bigger budget, it could have been fucking phenomenal. Like a upgrade the special effects and everything, and maybe get somebody in to do a little work on, pepping up the script, the dialogue in certain places, but overall I just thought it was great. And it just, I don't know. I can't get really specific, but it just it got more and more and more
intense.
And there was enough variation among the characters and different things that, there was of course there's the little kids that are running around the hospital and stuff. And in the beginning, there were certain expositional moments or, things that I thought was I don't know how plausible that is, or, well, that's very much hey, audience, this is what's happening. But yeah, it just, the actors were not phenomenal, but they're pretty solid. There were enough people in there that I had seen in other things. And yeah, when the big bug is finally there, it's not the best effects I've ever seen, but they made it work. And I did feel like it was pretty scary. And the characters didn't do a lot of stupid stuff. Like I felt like that most of them did, they made pretty good decisions once they realized they were in danger. And the ending, I just kept thinking at the end, like, wow, this reminds me of some other movies I've seen, but this could have been huge. I feel like if they had like another, I don't know, another $10 million or something for the effects. And I feel like it could, I don't know how well it did in the cinema, but I think it could have been huge. Like the whole, just punch up the effects and the script a tiny bit, and it could have been massive.
So was this your first viewing, Michael?
Yeah.
Okay. Phil, what about you? When did you first see Blue Monkey?
It was probably in 1988 when I rented it on home video. This was theatrical, and it did play Pittsburgh, but I wasn't really old enough to go see R-rated films at that point, or I was, but it wasn't playing anywhere where I could get to it, and I probably didn't even know what it was. It's hard to know what a movie called Blue Monkey could be about,
Right?
And it wasn't the kind of movie that had been. There wasn't a lot of talk about it, at least in the magazines that I read, like Fangoria, Famous Monsters. I think I had stopped buying every issue at that point, so if they talked about it, I don't remember that. I guess it was like 1988 to answer your question. And I didn't like this movie the first time I saw it. I have to be honest. Like it was really frustrating to me because like you said, that if this movie would have had more money, it would have looked a lot better, and it probably would have had a much bigger audience. But they try so hard to make it look like aliens. Like they really want it to look like aliens, and it's hilarious and kind of like humorous to me. It gives me a warm, good feeling when I see it. So I'm like, oh, they have like the misty interior with like metal grating that people are walking across, and you see the monster up through metal grating. That was the shot they wanted, and then they had to write the movie around the shot, or like work with what they had to use for a set. They're like, how could we make an aliens movie without actually making it in outer space? So
right,
that's the impression I got from Blue Monkey. And there's another movie just like that uses that same approach, Scared to Death, from 1980.
Yeah.
And if you've ever seen that one, it's about like a creature that's prowling the sewers of Los Angeles, and it's a genetic experiment gone wrong. What they really wanted to do was make a movie with a xenomorph in it, because the creature looks so much like the alien, and obviously they can't put it in outer space. They don't have the budget for that. So what are we going to do? Well, we'll just come up with a monster, and it will just look like the alien. And this movie was kind of like that. They wanted to do something and make an aliens movie without actually making an aliens movie.
Yeah.
Now, as far as release dates go, did this come out before or after Aliens?
After. Aliens was 86.
After.
87. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there was definitely that bit toward the end where you could see the people inside the like cocoonish things. And the woman was like, oh my God, they're still alive. And I was like, okay, I've seen that before, but yeah.
And it's funny. I've got an interesting story. I don't know how interesting this is, but so a few weeks ago, about a month ago, before we did the last episode of Fright Lounge, I just happened to be surfing through the streaming services, and I stumbled across this movie, and I thought I hadn't seen it before. And of course, I fell asleep halfway through, but just before I fell asleep, my wife walked into the room and she sat down with me. I'm like, oh, I was like captivated. I'm like, this movie's really good. You got to watch this. Of course, I fell asleep. Next day, she's like, yeah, you missed it. It was really good. So, and she doesn't even like these kind of movies, but she liked this one. So when I went to pick the movies for the last one, Bill and you and I were talking about it. I couldn't remember the name of this movie. I couldn't remember which streaming service I saw it on, because there was a couple that popped up that I don't normally. I have the Roku, so it'll go, oh, you want to watch this movie? It's on this streaming thing or whatever. So I couldn't find it. And it wasn't until just before we went, or we didn't go live, but we did our last show last month, that I figured out what movie this was. And then the more I thought about it, the more I remembered back in the late 80s, because I worked at a Blockbuster Video, I had read about this in the horror magazines like Fangoria. I don't think it was in Famous Monsters, but it was in Fangoria. I'd read about it to the point where when it came out on video, when I worked at Blockbuster, I made a copy of it. I have a vivid memory now in my head going, oh, yeah, duh, I have the blue monkey. And I always remember thinking, well, the villain's like a grasshopper looking monster. Why was it called Blue Monkey? And we'll get into that at the point.
Yeah, it's pretty random.
Yes. Well, but there's a line of dialogue in the movie that explains.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
So
it's still random.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. So
no, it's still random.
I remember enjoying it and really loving it, and then just over the years just kind of forgot about it. So watching it again this time with practically fresh eyes, I really, really love this movie. I thought it was well done. It was well paced. I actually liked the special effects in it. I thought, they were all practical. There was no computer generated stuff back then, but definitely had an aliens influence to it. And I think at this point, how many years later, that doesn't even really matter anymore. Around the time, probably people were like, well, it's copying aliens, but today, who cares,
Yeah.
Yeah. We were a lot more sanctimonious back then about our, fanboy franchise.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. And I guess I kind of felt, I don't know, maybe it's not quite the same what you were describing, Bill, but in a way I kind of felt like, oh, that's cute. They're imitating aliens. Like,
yeah.
Oh, I get it. I get why they would want to do that, and it kind of looks cool, but I wasn't like, hey, they ripped it off.
Yeah. And this movie was directed by a guy named William Fruitt, who also did Spasms, The House by the Lake, and Funeral Home. Bill, do you know anything about William Fruitt?
Well, I mean, I've seen a lot of his films, and I was going to mention those ones you did. The Funeral Home, I really love. That's with Leslie Donaldson, who is in Curtains as well. She was the ice skate victim in Curtains. She's the lead in Funeral Home, and it's one of those movies that was sort of mismarketed. They make it look like a zombie movie from the poster, but it's actually sort of like a Psycho riff. And I feel like William Fruitt's movies are almost films. They were almost big hits, or that they've become cult favorites over. He never really had sort of like a giant hit other than The House by the Lake,
right,
which was a really big hit. That was a really early film in his career, so maybe he got all those jobs afterwards because of House by the Lake being such a big hit.
I mean, Spasms was all over Famous Monsters magazine and Fangoria. I remember that one.
It was called Death Bite.
Death Bite, yeah.
When it was in the magazine, they wrote about it under the title Death Bite, because I was really confused when it came out and the title was Spasms.
Why do so many horror movies have multiple titles?
Oh, I can't believe you would bring up that subject. You want to get me talking for 5 hours?
All right, how about this? I'll give you guys the long and short of it, and then Bill, you can give a more detailed answer, okay?
Okay.
So they would release a movie, and if it didn't do well, they'd take it back, they'd retitle it, and release it again under a different title, hoping to make more money at it.
Bill? Sneaky bastards.
Well, that's pretty much everything you need to know right there, except also that sometimes they would try different titles based on the market where it was playing. One company that was very well known for doing this was Hallmark Releasing,
right? And
they acquired SF Brownrigg's film The Forgotten, and that it had a limited release as that in the southwest part of the United States, but they were from Boston and they were going to distribute it themselves, and they were talking about, like, what title, or they didn't want to use the title The Forgotten because it was too vague, so they started putting it out under all these titles like Beyond Help, The Snake Pit, which is a ripoff of another mental asylum film from the 50s, The Snake Pit, and there was another one too. Oh, Death Ward 13, That was one title that but the title
I
that
like
they
that title.
stuck with was Don't Look in the Basement. And that's the title that we all know that movie by today.
Look at the
And
basement.
so that was just them retitling things. But then there are other movies where they were purchased by a distributor later. Like one distributor would put it out and their contract would expire, and somebody else might want to purchase it. And all they would do is cut the original title out and put a new title in, and then they would put it out on an unsuspecting drive-in and grindhouse audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you had movies like what the Living Dead in Manchester Morgue. It came out as Let Sleeping Corpses Lie.
Yeah, that was also Hallmark releasing.
And there was another one in the Boston area. It was I'm trying to remember what the title was. It was Breakfast something.
Breakfast at Manchester Morgue.
That's right. Yeah.
But we know it as Don't Open the Window.
Right.
That's
Wow.
I think that's how I saw it on TV when I was a kid. Right.
There were actual radio ads though for Breakfast at Manchester Morgue, but they only played in the Boston area, and also in Louisville, Kentucky got it as that.
Yeah.
There were a couple other cities, but most places got. Oh, New York got it as Breakfast at Manchester Morgue too, but then they also got the re-title as Don't Open the Window. It was like 1976. 75 was the Breakfast at Manchester Morgue release, but then by the time they changed the title, it was 76.
And you know, Bill, you and I have talked about it on the show, but I'm going to bring it up again just because I think it's hilarious. The first Armando D'Osario Blind Dead film, The Tombs of the Blind Dead, it was aired, or I'm sorry, it was played in theaters here, and then it was reissued as Escape from Planet Ape, right? Or Revenge from Planet Ape.
Revenge from Planet Ape,
right.
I think was the title that they pasted on it.
And because the corpses, the villains looked like, I guess if you looked at a certain angle, they looked like apes. They made this whole intro that's like try to tie it into the Planet of the Apes craze.
Wow.
It was a dastardly thing to do. Who would do such a thing?
Grabbing on the coattails, you know.
I mean, the people that were doing this too, like they were shady characters. So it wasn't like they were looking to have a long and shining film career. They just wanted to make money as easily as possible. And what's easier than just buying a movie that's already made and pasting something else? That Revenge from Planet Ape thing was just a very localized thing. I think it was in the El Paso area.
I think so, yeah.
Texas had a lot of crazy retitles because, you know, their drive-in culture was so strong that there was a constant need for new movies, new titles to keep it interesting. So they would sometimes put these movies out again with a slight title change. But that was a local operation, that Revenge from Planet Ape.
Yeah, I have an ad somewhere, and if it comes up on my computer, I'll let you guys know. But so all right, so this movie was also called Insect, and of course, if folks who've been following the show, you know that, you know, of course, Bill and we always like to look up movie ads. You know, Bill more so than me. So this movie is also known as Insect with an exclamation point. And when I tried looking it up under that title, I couldn't find it. I could only actually find it under Blue Monkey. So, you know, IMDb, it's sort of like Wikipedia. You kind of have to take it with a grain of salt.
Well, Insect was a video title for this. I think that's why it was listed as an alternate title there, because it did come out on home video as Insect.
Okay, that makes sense.
When I watched it on Tubi or Freebie or whatever the heck channel it was, it was lit. It was listed as Blue Monkey, and I clicked on it and started watching it. And in the beginning, it had a title card that said Insect.
Yes. Yeah.
And then I paused it to make sure I was watching the right movie. And like at the bottom, it said Blue Monkey. And I was like, all right, it's just an alternate title. So they left it in there.
Yeah, it's so weird. But like if you were to just go to IMDb, it says, oh, released in the US under the title Insect. And like Bill said, that's not true. So
do their fucking research.
I don't think it
Do
plays
your
theaters
research.
as Insect. I would love to find an ad. I mean, I know I've looked,
Yeah.
So I haven't been able to find anything yet, but
Also,
I'd love to be proven wrong about that.
Why did they title it Blue? Like, I know the kid, there's a point in the movie where the kids are like kind of wandering around the hospital and, getting into mischief, and they know something's going on, but they don't know what it is. And it's like, oh, it's scary down here. And one of the kids says, yeah, we'll probably got to find like some giant blue monkey or something. And like, how did that become the title of the movie? Like, they just didn't want to call it like giant bug in a hospital corridor, or
I have no idea.
okay.
Yeah, it was.
There's no speculation or articles been written about it or anything. Like, why did they do that?
I think they did it. I think they did it because they just wanted the movie to be. They wanted the title to be completely random, so that maybe the viewers wouldn't know what kind of movie that they were in store for, and it might have been a shock.
Okay.
Oh,
I don't know. I'm just just making that up.
Oh, here we go. I found. I know we're kind of off topic here, but I'm gonna share this with the folks at home. If I can find my thing. Okay, there it is. So I'm gonna do share screen, and yes, share. This was Armando Diaz-Ario's the Tombs Lying Dead, but retitled as Revenge from Planet Ape. From Beyond the Grave, where death is just the beginning. Look at you can see the horsemen, the knights, but then of course you've got an ape in the background.
Yeah.
The apes rise from their graves to destroy man in a battle that survives death.
Too intense for TV.
Because we don't know if we can get away with this.
Too intense for TV. You have to get off your butt and go to the theater and buy it.
Yeah, hurry. It's not going to last long. Get down there quick.
The horror film you will remember all your life.
No passes. Keep those passes. Don't even try it.
Oh my God, it's so funny. That is just so funny. But before we get into the other pictures, and I'm going to stop the share. Hold on. Stop the share. Stop the share. Okay, screen sharing is stopped. Thank you for letting me know. I wanted to talk about real quick about like we mentioned the director William Fruit. He's Fruit. William Apple. All right. But it's written by George Goldsmith, who wrote Children of the Corn, a movie called Nowhere to Hide from '87, and also a film that I remember seeing at the local Stoneham Cinema in Stoneham, Massachusetts.
Oh my God.
Force 5 from 1981. It was a American kung fu movie.
Force 5?
Yes. Because I thought it was the cartoons that we used to watch, the Japanese cartoons, Force 5.
Yeah, with Guy King and
and it wasn't that. It was
Star Avengers.
My Nana took me and a friend to see it, and they let us in before the movie even started, so we saw the end of the movie before it began again.
That's the worst.
Because 1981. I mean, come on.
That's what Hitchcock didn't want you to happen when you went to see Psycho.
Right.
So if we talk about the cast just real briefly here, we got Ivan E. Roth played the creature, and he did a lot of monsters. He was in Night of the Comet, Dead Heat, and a bunch of other films. But Steve Railsback, Bill, I want you to, if you can, talk about him a little bit. He played Detective Jim Bishop, but I'm going to say when I first remember I explained that I saw this movie and I started to like it a lot, and then I fell asleep through it. I liked him. Like he for me, he was the movie. I'm like, oh my God, this guy's so awesome. I'm like, who is it? Like, I didn't visually recognize him. And I have to say, he's the one that his character drew me to the film. I felt like he kind of carried the film. He was in, Steve Railsback, of course, now that I know, of course, I remember the talk about when he was in The Devil's Rejects. Oh, Rob Zombie, he picked Steve Railsback to play the sheriff. And he was in Life Force. He was in Barbed Wire with Pamela Anderson. I had forgotten he played Billy the Kid in The Last Escape of Billy the Kid, where Jack Elam played Pat Garrett. So, Bill, do you have anything to say about Steve Railsback?
Well, the thing I know him best from is Life Force.
Yeah.
But he's played a lot of, he's sort of like one of the go-to actors when you need this type of character. Um, his character, he was in the movie Trick or Treats
Oh yeah.
from 1982. It was a sort of a Halloween ripoff. Well, not even sort of. It was a Halloween ripoff from 1982. Kind of a fun little movie, Trick or Treats.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and let's see. What else do I remember Steve Railsback from? Well, I kind of remember him from Barbed Wire.
Yeah.
I think I know I saw that one. I don't remember his character though in The Devil's Rejects.
He was I'm gonna look it up real quick here. He was
the sheriff or
sheriff,
something?
wasn't he? Oh wait. No, wrong one. Oh wait, no, Chris Kosiak is
Yeah, I don't remember much about that movie. I remember that I liked it, but
Yeah, same here.
I watched it once or twice. Like I think my roommate had one of he had it on DVD, and that was the only reason that I watched it more than once. But I thought ironically, like I don't know, I'm not crazy about those kinds of movies. Like, movies where there's like people like home invasions and somebody's being held there by these criminals and these sleazebags. I hated that aspect of it. But there was one scene that really got to me, and it was in the deleted scenes segments of the DVD, and it was they totally ignore the character Dr. Satan from House of a Thousand Corpses, and you
which
don't
was
see,
end credit sequence.
yeah, it was unbelievable. But there was a scene with Dr. Satan in it that was cut from the film, and that one really got to me. There was just like, that was the sort of fun aspect of horror and monsters that I think was missing from The Devil's Reject. It wasn't that kind of film.
Yeah, and it was one of those ones you're like, how the hell did they survive at the end of the first movie? You know what I mean? But this one, oh no, I'm sorry. With the end of this one into the third one was like, how did they survive? Because it was pretty quiet. He played
It was silly.
Wire, and he's uncredited in the movie, according to IMDb. So
It probably wasn't a big part.
the thing, and not to get too far on a tangent, but the thing I like about those Rob Zombie films is that he does them in a 70s style, and that's what gets me. That's you're right. All that shit is super disturbing and hard to watch, but I like it because it's got that, the race with the devil kind of feel to it, only amped up to X rating.
I have a hard time watching a movie where there's no like where I don't feel like there's anybody in the movie who's like a redeemable character, redeemable person. It's like either the helpless victim who's just screaming, for their lives, or everybody else who's just fucked up and has no moral compass and, has been eating cats since they were 6 years old and fuck this, fuck that, fuck this, fuck that. And it's like, okay, I don't mind gore and I don't mind profanity or anything, but if I'm in a movie where there's just like no character who reflects on what they're doing or has like a little bit of redeemable something in them, then I get to a point after the first hour where I'm just like, all right, come on. Like, why do I care what happens in the second half of the movie? Because it's just going to be more, horrific, hateful. Yeah. Which again, I'm fine with it as long as there's,
Otis was a family man. That was his redeeming quality.
Right.
It's been a long time since I watched it. I have to watch it again. I'm not necessarily picking on that movie, but I just have that general concept in my head of like Rob Zombie movies. I remember there being like long stretches of the movie where there's just the people were so, I don't even know what the word is, irredeemable.
Right, yeah.
So that like I couldn't.
I think you nailed it.
I guess I'm unique because I don't have that issue. Someone else I was talking to recently had a problem with the main character. Oh, it was on my show, The East Meets the West. And he was like, yeah, I couldn't get behind that character. And he's supposed to be the main character. And I'm like, I never have a problem. I don't know. So anyways, we got, before I dig myself too deeper into this, we got Gwyneth Walsh, who played Dr. Rachel Carson. She was the emergency room doctor that
Rachel Carson.
Yeah, I know, huh? Isn't that weird? She's still acting. And then we got Susan Anspach, who was Dr. Judith Glass. She was the doctor, or the other doctor on call at the time of the outbreak. She's still acting. She was in Star Trek Voyager, Stargate SG-1. She was also in My Kill Forever Night. She was in one episode of that.
Oh,
Then we got Don Lake, I like this guy, Don Blake. Don Lake, not Don Blake, not Thor. Don Lake played Dr. Elliot Jacobs. He was the guy, the entomologist, who they called him to help out. He was great.
I've seen him in tons of stuff. Yeah.
And he was in Terminator 2. He played Mossberg, which I'm trying to remember that character.
That's awesome.
He was in Rocket Man with Harlan Williams, which is hilarious. But I liked the fact that his character, like, you expected him to be sort of a cowardly douchebag, and he wasn't. He was right there with the good guys trying to stop what was going on. I love that aspect.
And I like that he changed from like being geeking out and being like fascinated by it, and then he finally was like, fuck, this is a real threat. Okay. And he kind of switched gears of like, how can we kill it,
Right.
Yeah. The acting was pretty good in this movie. I thought, like even though like, there were times where I was like, and one thing I loved is at the very beginning, this is a tiny thing, but at the very beginning, they showed like the exterior of the building and they said like, blah, 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 hospital. And I was like, that's a hospital. And then later in the movie, the guy says, I never would have guessed that this building was a hospital. And she's like, oh yeah, it used to be a blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe they put a line of dialogue in there that it was totally perfect.
That's the best, because Michael, you and I often, that's our criticism, is all they needed was that one line of dialogue to explain something away.
Yeah.
It would be no problem.
Right.
And they did.
And they did it. Yeah. And I thought the script was pretty smart in some areas. Like, again, there were a lot of times where something kind of predictable was happening, but the way they did it, the way the people talked about it and stuff was like, like when the woman was supposed to keep an eye on the thing under the glass in the lab, and the other guy came in and was like, hey, I'm goofing around. And he was like, this is the scene where he distracts her and gets her away from the thing she's supposed to be watching. But I felt like the way they did it was, instead of it just being like a throwaway, like, oh, whatever, like she was really kind of like, well, I don't know if I should. And I don't know. I thought that the scene was better written than it could have been, like the way they, and the nurses too, like when the nurses were talking to the guy who was like the owner of the hospital or something, talking to him about what was going on, like there were some sharp bits in there that they,
Oh yeah. Dean Wormer from Animal House.
Yeah. It was like, well, I don't know what's going on in here. We got to, and they were really sharp, I thought.
We'll talk about him in a second, but I wanted to bring up a point that you mentioned. So there's this one nurse, and she's been told that, like, they've for folks who haven't seen the film, they somehow captured one of these little worm things. They don't know what it is, but they think it might be the cause of these people getting sick. So they've got it under this sort of a dome glass. It's in a Petri dish or something, not a Petri dish, but it's in some kind of tin aluminum dish, and there's a glass thing over it. And this nurse's job, her one job, is to make sure it doesn't, nothing happens to it. Right. So this guy comes in and says, hey, let's go outside and have a smoke. Okay. And she runs off with him. And of course they end up having sex and, taking all kinds of time. Meanwhile, Steve Railsback's character, the detective, is in the hospital. He just lights up a cigarette whenever the fuck he wants.
I know.
Yeah.
So why do they have to go outside to smoke?
I think they were smoking weed, though.
Oh, really? Okay, I
think it was a joint.
Oh.
Really? Where did they go? Which way did they go?
I don't know. Where'd they go? I got to catch up. No, I got the sense that it was a joint or two. Okay. Like, I think he was like, look what I got, like.
Oh, that might make more sense. All right. Yeah. Because I'm like, anyone can light up a cigarette anywhere in the hospital next to the oxygen tanks.
I really liked, I know, right? He was just smoking away. But I liked that scene where they first got it trapped under the glass thing. Was like, I forget where it came from initially. Did it bust out of somebody, or where did it come from?
They find it in somebody's yard. Like the old man got bit by the flower. Like he hit the.
That's right.
And they hatched from him.
It came from
him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when it like started to get away or kind of fell onto the table, the cop guy immediately grabbed this like metal like dish sort of thing, clamped it over it, and then he said, get something else, because he knew that that wasn't heavy enough, you know, in case the thing tried to move. And then he sort of like slid it to the edge of the table, and they got this heavy glass thing, and they kind of like put it on it and flipped it upside down and then had it on the table. It was like everybody thought really fast, like, how can we trap this thing?
Yeah.
And they like, and it was like, thank you, like, smart characters, you know.
They read the script.
Yeah, they read the script. But it was like, okay, they actually saw what was going on and like immediately looked around the room and were like, okay, this, you know. And, yeah. And
So,
of course, there had to be an opening at the top for the kids to come in, and
oh, of course, yeah. We'll get into the kids because I want to ask you a question about that, Michael. But before we do that, I just want to mention Helen Hughes played Marella Harbison. She was the old lady that accidentally starts the infection when she gets the plant in her greenhouse. She was in Billy Madison and Tommy Boy movies I've never seen. But and of course, as we mentioned, we touched upon John Vernon, who, of course, is famous for playing Dean Wormer in Animal House, was in this. And this guy's been in so many things. I mean, he was the mayor in Dirty Harry. He was Dr. Stone in Airplane 2.
Oh, that's right.
He was the sheriff in Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I mean, you got to love him. He just has this weird sort of deadpan way of doing things that's still hilarious, and I don't think he means it to be.
Pretty typecast. It's like the stodgy guy.
Well, when I saw his name in the credits, I was thinking there's a couple of other Vernons. Well, first of all, there's that movie, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, which is a hilarious movie about slasher film killers. If you people haven't had a chance to see that, but there's also, isn't Vernon like the guy that was the main bad guy in Mad Max, and he came back for Fury Road?
Oh, could be.
I think so.
I don't remember names.
Vernon or Vernon Wells. Vernon Wells, I think.
Vernon Wells, yeah.
Yeah. Because then there's John Vernon. So it said Vernon Wells, and I was like, oh, the guy from Mad Max. And it was like, oh, John Vernon. No, he's okay.
Sam had him on BNS about movies. Vernon Wells.
Really?
He had an interview with him.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's cool.
By the way, you mentioned Tommy Boy. That's actually quite funny, that movie.
Is
if
it?
If you're in the mood for a comedy, yeah.
It's,
David Spade and the big heavy guy from SNL. What was his name? Shit. No, not Junkie.
Chris Farley.
Chris Farley.
Chris Farley, that was his name.
Farley, come on.
Sorry. I wasn't like a big SNL person, but I used to know his name, yeah.
Well, after Bill Murray and that whole crew, maybe here and there.
Yeah, I was never like somebody who watched it all the time. I would just hear dribs and drabs and watch bits and pieces of it here and there.
All right. So, Michael, I wanted to ask you, the little kids in this movie, I know for the most part, I think it's safe to say you generally don't like little kids in a movie, but what did you think about how they were in this movie and what their effect on the plot was?
I didn't mind them in this movie. Yeah, sometimes, I hate kids if they seem forced into the movie, and like they're just there as like a reason why somebody accidentally gets killed, or there's comic relief, or they're just But in this movie, they were pretty good. I thought that the little kid, the boy who was kind of like the leader of those four kids, was pretty good actor, and he was pretty charming. I mean, it was easy to like him. He wasn't annoying in any way. And even when they were like, come on, let's go, and they were like not doing what they were told, I was kind of like, oh, I wonder what they're going to find. I wasn't like, stupid kids. Like they, I don't know if I don't know. You're asking how they affected the plot. I don't know. There was one moment toward the end after the cop guy had said, okay, now get out of here. And then like he was doing something, the cop guy was doing something, and something caught on fire, or there was something really dangerous, and he was like running to get away, and the kid's standing there, and he's like, what are you doing here? It's like, oh, I got worried, so I came back. And I was like, fucking kid, like he told you to get out of there. Now he's gonna pick you up and carry you while he's trying to rescue himself. Like, dumbass. But overall, it was pretty good. I mean, I didn't mind them in this. I thought that they fit sort of into the whole situation. Yeah,
I thought so too. I thought they started the whole thing by fucking around with the
that's for sure.
Kids playing with chemicals. Yeah.
But you know what I like? I liked that the boy, like the main boy there, he was not the one to fuck it up. Like he was sort of like curious, and then one of the other, they were like, oh, he looks hungry, let's feed him some fish food or whatever, and they picked up this thing that wasn't fish food, and then one of the other dipshits was like, I wanna, and he'd hit it, and then it like poured a whole bunch of it in on the thing, and the kid, that kid was like, what are you doing, don't do that, like he had enough presence of mind to yell at the other kid, but then they were like, okay, we got to get out of here, they weren't just like
later on in the movie, one of the doctors is like, oh, that's growth hormone,
yeah, and they were like, only a little bit would cause this to happen, and it looks like there's a lot more in there. Yeah,
I like the fact that the kids were instrumental in stopping the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
But Bill,
Well, they caused the whole thing. They should have stopped it.
right?
Yeah. But usually there's no there's just kind of oops, and then the adults have to fix it.
Aliens only gave you one kid. Blue Monkey gives you 3.
Was it 3 or 4? I thought it was 4 of them.
It was 4.
4,
2
sorry.
girls and 2 boys.
But Aliens didn't give you 2 old ladies getting drunk.
That's true. That was great. I thought the drunk woman was like believably drunk. Like her whole demeanor, the way she was in all the scenes was like, what are you gonna do? I don't know. I thought she was so much fun.
That whole thing, because them being drunk is actually instrumental to the plot, and that made me think of the movie African Queen with Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn, and John Huston. I almost said John Hurt. John Huston directed it, and they all really went to Africa to film it because John Huston always, he wanted to go all around the world, so he would make a movie and say, "Oh, I want to do it here," so someplace that he wanted to go hunting or whatever, and everybody on set got food poisoning from the water, except for John Hurt and Humphrey Bogart, because all they drank was alcohol.
Oh,
no water at all?
Nope.
Jesus.
Yeah, liquid.
Christ.
Who needs water when you
in
get
a hot climate? They didn't drink any water.
no?
Damn, that's messed up.
So I love that though. I love the 2 old ladies. At first, like, don't you think you're like, oh, these old ladies, what are they? It's going to be annoying.
Yeah,
but they were funny.
Yeah. I felt that way about a lot of the characters in the beginning, like the first 30 minutes of the movie or so. I was just like, oh God, we gotta have this is the stereotypical character who acts like, but like the script was pretty decent, and the way like all the actors put in a good effort. So it was like, it was enjoyable. It was, even the scenes with the weird characters were not annoying. They were, they worked, I thought.
It definitely had sort of a made-for-video vibe, even though it wasn't made for video. Bill, what do you know about its release? Anything? I know we kind of talked about, the titles and all that.
Just that it was very limited. It didn't play a whole lot of cities. Of course, it was never a hit theatrically. This was one of those movies that was caught in that period between theatrical release and direct-to-video. And there were a lot of movies that, like in 86 and 87, that only had brief theatrical releases. And mainly the theatrical release was just to bolster its prospects for selling it to home video.
Right.
Like whether people actually went to the theaters to see it or not, you could still take that to a video distributor and say, hey, this was a theatrical film. So, you want to buy it for home video?
Yeah.
Dead Heat was around the same time, and that was the same way. It only played in limited cities with Joe Piscopo and Treat Williams.
Yeah.
Every time you say Dead Heat, I think Red Heat, which is a Schwarzenegger movie.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnold.
But yeah, one thing that I really enjoyed about this movie, and like I said, I had forgotten it. Really, it completely fell off my radar. But when you get about 3/4 into the movie, all of a sudden it amps up, and like I was literally on the edge of my seat going, oh my God. I mean, I got my blanket and I'm hiding, but I'm like, oh my God, what the hell is going to happen? And, and then the people in the hospital are running because the monster's coming, and it was, shit was hitting the fan, and it was like, I'm like, oh my God, where the hell are these people going to go? And the government won't let them out, because they showed you at one point, one guy tried to escape and they shot him dead.
Yeah.
So it was really, really like the tension and the pacing was well done, I thought.
Mm-hmm. And even that bit at the end, even though the effects weren't awesome, when the giant insect was chasing the guy down the tunnel.
Yeah.
Even though, it didn't look like the most realistic monster in the world, I was still like, shit, go, 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 go. You know, like, get away from this thing. It's going to kill you. Yeah.
The realism isn't as important as the way the scene is directed, the way the actors react to this creature.
Yeah.
That's what really sells this kind of stuff. And I think we're finding that out a lot with CGI, like how CGI renders almost anything that you want to put up on the screen, but you still can't make the story interesting. It's not going to automatically create the scene for you.
Right.
You have to set that up as a director. And oftentimes that's just what people assume you want to see. Like, they don't care about the scene. They just want to see the creature. And that's not necessarily so, at least not for me.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So final thoughts on this movie. Bill, what are your final thoughts on Blue Monkey, aka Insect?
I like some of William Fruit's other movies better than Blue Monkey, but it's extremely unique. There weren't many movies like this at the time. At least, any movie that was made like this was considered a throwback to 1950s sci-fi, including Aliens, which was often compared to them.
Right.
Especially when it came out. So, this was another one of those kind of films where there was still a lot of nostalgia for 50s sci-fi, at least at that time. And this movie taps into that very well. I like it a lot. It's different than other William Fruit movies. I can't think of any movies that he did that were like this one with a monster in it.
Right.
I don't know. I'll have to look at it over his IMDb things and brush up on my William Fruit history. But yeah, I like Blue Monkey. I think it's well done. It's not the greatest, but it's better than a lot of things that I've seen since then.
Oh yeah, yeah. Michael?
It was better than I expected it to be. I think after watching Shivers, I was kind of bracing myself, like, okay, what is this one going to be like in the same vein where it's just mostly gross? And like I said before, the other one I didn't think the story was particularly compelling. But Blue Monkey, to me, I don't know, maybe just my personal taste, the way things built, like a lot of the stuff in the beginning, I kind of thought, this is not really that believable, and okay, la da da. But as it went on, maybe because I thought the dialogue was pretty good, and like I said, the characters made reasonable decisions in a lot of the scenes, I began to enjoy the characters more and more, even and the situation. I was like, okay, the situation in the beginning is kind of similar to with the other movie, but then it went in a direction I wasn't expecting. And for my favorite type of horror is monster movies. So as soon as there was a monster, I was like, yes. Like as soon as we got to the end where it was like, okay, there's this big nasty thing, trying to kill people, I was like, all right, now I'm on board. Yeah, I really want to watch it again. Actually, that's as soon as I finished watching it, I was like, that was good. Like I would watch that again.
Yeah. I do too. I actually haven't. I normally I watch these movies twice before I do a show, and I didn't get a chance to, but I want to see this one again. I thought it was highly enjoyable. I thought it was gripping. Like I said, I was on the edge of my seat. I think it's absolutely very underrated. So people need to check this out on Tubi. And we didn't get a chance to talk about or for me to show some of the what do you call it? Movie? Yeah, the movie ads.
The ads.
Bill, I think you got this one, right, Bill?
Yeah, this is from when it played Pittsburgh.
Right. They breed, they hatch, they kill. Maybe it's just a phase they're going through.
Oh, speaking of breed, hatch, kill, I want us some point, if possible, to do the movie Mimic.
Ooh.
Because I saw that before and I thought it was kind of cool, and I would like to see it again. And
yeah, I saw that in the theater. Marissa Tomei and Tom Sizemore, right? Who he just died like yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
No, Marissa Tomei.
Yeah, wasn't it?
I'm thinking was the blonde Mira Sorvino.
Mira Sorvino.
Mira
right.
Sorvino. Oh, Mimic. Yeah, she's in Mimic.
Yeah.
Is that what you were talking about? Mimic? No.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the one.
I said the wrong actress. I apologize.
That's
So,
okay.
anyways, they breed, they hatch, they kill. Here we go. Blue
Mhm.
Monkey. So you said this was from Pittsburgh?
Yeah, it was on 4 screens in Pittsburgh, including the McKnight Cinema, which was, I think that was one of the big. No, not the McKnight Cinema. Sorry, it wasn't at the Showcase, but it was at the Cinemet chain, including the one in Monroeville Mall.
Oh yeah, where Dawn of the Dead was filmed.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then they get this one here. I don't know if this was you or me, Bill.
I think I sent you that.
Okay. Blue Monkey.
we serve real butter on our hot popcorn. Not that chemical crap.
It's just funny to see what else was comparatively out around the same time. I mean, Hellraiser, Roxanne with
La Bamba.
La Bamba, yeah.
Born in East LA.
Yeah,
Adventure,
how about that?
RoboCop. I mean,
Oh, RoboCop and Lost Boys. Oh, can you imagine that
Oh.
double feature? Oh my God.
Adventures in Babysitting, also Hellraiser.
yeah. I Can't Buy Me Love. Nobody cares. Oh, The Principal with Jim Belushi.
Mm.
Fourth
Another
part.
reason why I loved Adventures in Babysitting was because I had a crush on Elizabeth Shue
Yeah.
at the time. I was like,
She's in the
so
Boys. You know that
yeah,
show?
I know. I can't watch that show.
Oh, I love that show.
That's another show with like hardly anybody with any redeeming qualities.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah.
There's a couple, but I just can't. I can't watch that show. I don't know.
All right. Here's another one from. I'm not sure.
Dirty Dancing. No Way Out. Oh my God.
Monkey. No Way Out. Was that Kevin Costner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stakeout with
Richard.
yeah, Dreyfuss and
Emilio Estevez.
Emilio Estevez. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember the scene
Fatal
of that movie where they're doing movie quotes, and he's like, "Yeah, that was not a boating accident." Richard Dreyfuss is like, "I don't know what that's from."
What's
and
funny is they say it twice in Jaws. They say it in two different scenes, and it's
yeah.
it's said slightly differently each time. But yeah.
So these were some movie reviews I got. I'm not going to read them here, but I'll post them afterwards on the show. I got to move our pictures here because here's
Lady
another.
Kung Fu.
Oh yeah, Lady. Oh, look at that, Lady Kung Fu. That's cool. But they came from within. This was actually Shivers, which I think somehow got lost in the shuffle here. And then another, They Came From Within.
Yeah, that
He stepped away. And Are They Demons to Be Exorcised? Yeah, we saw that.
we saw that one. Yeah.
And then I just thought this one was kind of cool. This was why is this doing? I'm trying to move. Oh, there we go. Beyond the Door and Race with the Devil, which is I love Race with the Devil. I think I made you watch that, Michael, at one point, right?
Probably. I don't remember.
Vonda and the two couples, they go on an RV excursion, like a vacation, and then they encounter devil worshippers, and the devil worshippers chase them through the whole movie.
Oh yeah.
Watch that again. I'll talk about that. All right, folks. So that was our discussion of Blue Monkey. And I'm going to, I think we're going to just take a break here because some of us need to visit the little live streamers room.
Okay. Cool.
So I'm going to put, where is it? I'm going to find the graphic. I'm going to put it up and we'll be back in about 5 minutes or so. Oh, there's another one. So where did the other one go? Hold on. You know what? Oh, shoot. Are these pictures still live, Michael? He's not even there. All right.
Hello?
We're going to take a quick break here, Bill.
Oh, okay.
I'm just trying to find the thing to mute my camera. Okay, I'm back. Bill, Michael, are you back?
I'm here.
Here I am.
Awesome. All right, folks. So that was our talk on Blue Monkey. And we're going to next talk about the movie Slither from 2006, which I think people are going to like because Nathan Fillion's in this movie. So the quick synopsis from IMDb is: a small town is taken over by an alien plague, turning residents into zombies and all forms of mutant monsters, which I guess is kind of an okay description of the film. But first impressions, Bill, when did you first see this movie?
It was probably on home video, right? Maybe like a year or so after it came out theatrically. I wasn't interested in it when it was theatrical, but I did enjoy it. I saw it on home video and I liked it a lot.
Cool. Michael? Mike, did you see this with me, Mike?
I think we saw this in the theater.
Yeah, I definitely saw it in the theater. I just couldn't remember.
Yeah. I don't remember what I thought of it the first time, but this time around, it didn't really do it for me. I like the actors in it. The thing I remember the most from this movie that will always stick in my head is Nathan Fillion watching from a distance the creatures doing stuff. He goes, "Holy shit!" The way he said that will always stick in my head as like when you say what's the movie called? Slither. I was like slugs, slime, slither. Yeah. Whenever you say slither, that's the first thing I think of. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. This time I just kind of, I just wasn't into it. I don't know. It just seemed like a lot of slime and gross for nothing. And I always hated that fucking scene where they go into the barn and there's that woman whose body has been like expanded to the size of a truck or whatever the fuck. And I'm just like, come on. I mean, like, even if there is some alien shit going on inside her, the human body can only expand so far, you know, and I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know. It just didn't work for me this time around.
Well, what's funny is I have an interesting, different take on this. I obviously, we saw it in the movies. I remember loving it so much so that I bought it on DVD, and then I kind of forgot about it. I only revisited it a couple times since then, since 2006. And I like when I first saw it. Nathan Fillion was sort of, even though I don't even had he been on Buffy at that point?
I don't know, but we knew who he was. We knew who he was.
So I didn't like at the time. To me, it was just a scary movie, and it had a couple funny moments and stuff. And watching it this time, I was laughing my ass off from the beginning to the end. Like every line of dialogue in this movie was hilarious, and I didn't realize it until till the end of the movie. I'm like, shit, this is a horror comedy. And then I looked it up, and of course it's listed as a horror comedy. And I never thought about it that way. I always thought it was just a scary movie with some funny stuff in it. And I mean, yeah, as you mentioned, Nathan Fillion is just so great in it. And I felt like it worked on every level.
He's so young in this movie.
I know, huh? Especially watching him in The Rookie now.
Yeah.
It's just so funny, but that whole scene, like I remember the lady going, "I'm so hungry,
so hungry. Something's wrong with me." That's a fair assessment.
This movie's directed by James Gunn, who has gone on to do Guardians of the Galaxy and Suicide Squad. He created the Peacemaker TV show on HBO Max and produced that. I think he even directed like the pilot episode, maybe a couple others. He also wrote this movie. And of course, folks, if you don't know who Nathan Fillion is, he plays, of course, Police Chief Bill Party. He was on the show Firefly. That's what I think we knew him from, even though he had been on Buffy. We knew him from Firefly. He was on the show Castle for quite a few years. And of course, now he's on The Rookie, which is a great show. It's one of the few shows that doesn't have any, sci-fi, horror, or superpowers or anything in it that I really like. And then we got Elizabeth Banks, played Starla Grant, and she's another one. Like her face was so familiar to me watching it this time. and she was in the Hunger Games. She played the villain Rita Repulsa in the 2017 version of the Power Rangers movie. But you know what? She was Betty Brant in Spider-Man 3.
That's right. With the dark hair.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
And
I like her with dark hair.
Yeah. And one of the main characters was Grant. His name was Grant, and that was Michael Rooker. Now, Michael Rooker,
Yes.
I remember Mike Hill, our friend Chris and I went and saw that in Boston. We saw this movie called Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Yeah.
And it was one of these movies. There's hardly any blood in it, but it's sort of a blueprint for serial killers. And we were terrified just to go to the car after seeing that movie. And I remember thinking, this guy's awesome. And of course, he also has been in Guardians of the Galaxy. He played Yondu in the 2 movies. And I think he's going to be in the 3rd one as well. He was also on Walking Dead. He was Daryl Dixon's brother, Merle Dixon.
Oh.
So
he's been in I've seen him in tons of movies. Yeah. He's great. I like him a lot.
And then Greg Henry, of course, at first, like my wife and I were watching it again, and she had seen this with me before a year or 2 ago. And she's like, "Oh, I remember this movie. I fucking hate this movie because it's so."
Yes.
But we thought Greg Henry, who played the mayor, we thought he was the dad in Home Alone, but he wasn't. He plays Mayor Jack McCready, and we'll get into that reference there a little bit. He's the perfect asshole in this. He was Peter Quill's grandfather in Guardians of the Galaxy at the beginning.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And he was
in the hospital when the mothers died.
Mel Gibson. He also played a judge on an episode of The Rookie. So I remember.
What was he in with Mel Gibson?
Payback.
Oh, Payback. Okay.
Yeah. So it's just, this movie is, I don't know. I took a lot away from this time around. I had forgotten about it. James Gunn basically has described this as sort of a love letter to 80s horror films. I mean, he did this in 2006. But like I said, I didn't realize it was a comedy. When you watch it with that in mind, like everything the characters say are hilarious.
There's definitely a scene, a couple of scenes, one in particular I'm thinking of, where the Michael Rooker character he's got the parasite inside him already, and he's got these gross, like sausagey tentacle thingies coming out of his belly, and he like kind of holds this woman down, and they burrow into her belly, and then that reminded me a lot of Shivers. In a way, and I was just like, okay, there's that.
And I thought this movie had a nice balance of CGI and practical effects. Like it was obvious which was which, but I thought they balanced them well, because 2006, this was still around the time when they were starting to do CGI in movies. But James Gunn didn't like the whole scene where Nathan Fillion and Elizabeth Banks get covered in the worms.
Yeah.
He didn't like that. He at the end result, he's like, "Oh, that looks like crap."
Yeah, it wasn't great, and they just moved off them so quickly, and there was no like residue or anything. But I liked what the actors did in that moment. They like, she was on the ground, and he was already saying, close your mouth, don't let him in your mouth, and he like climbed on top of her and covered his own mouth, and just like tucked his head down and waited for them to think like covered, and then the things went away, and I was like, at least they were smart in that moment, because and they kept showing her going, and I'm like, shut your fucking mouth.
It's just like Shivers. It's like, these things are going to go right into your mouth. So folks, if you haven't seen this movie, it's these little worm creatures, and they just burrow right into people's mouths. But then, well, again, like Shivers, they turn them into these sort of weird zombie things, except in this one, they have this collective memory or collective mind. And so there's one scene which was brilliant, where all these people are possessed by these worms, but they're all speaking the same thing at the same time. And I thought that was like really cool, because it was kind of terrifying. And this movie, as much as it's funny, it's terrifying in the last third, I thought, anyways.
There's a little bit of Leviathan in this movie too, with the giant creature in that sort of like has all they're sort of like all absorbed into it at one point, and that's a Leviathan thing. And also the stepping stone from They Came From Within, aka Shivers, to this film is 1986's Night of the Creeps,
Right.
because that was the same idea. There was an alien slug that burrowed into you through your mouth and it turned you into a zombie.
Right.
And this obviously might have taken a few cues from that film.
And did you guys notice too that, I mean, there's a lot of Easter eggs in this film, and I'll try and touch on them. But there was definitely like some Predator stuff in this movie where like it was making the same clicking noise that the Predator makes.
Yeah.
And also even the music started to sound like the Predator score.
Yeah, I noticed the music, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many little things in this. Like one of the signs on I think it was it was the lodge. It was Henenlotter's Saddle Lodge presents Deer Chair. And of course, Frank Henenlotter is the horror film director that made Basket Case and Brain Damage.
What were you going to say about that character's name? There was a character's name that was reference to another movie.
McCready. Jack McCready was the mayor. R.J. McCready was Kurt Russell's character in John Carpenter's The Thing.
The Thing, yeah, McCready, yeah. Yep.
And then, of course, you got the bathtub scene, which was similar to Shivers, but also Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes. But Shivers was the only one that went for it. Shivers was the only one that really went for it.
Shivers made the road. Like, there was no road before Shivers.
No. Huh?
I said Shivers made the road. There was no road before Shivers.
There was no road.
Shivers made a road for Slither to come down much later in life.
And Slither like jumped up and went into her mouth. But yeah.
And James Gunn even said that Shivers was a major influence on this movie.
Oh, sure, no doubt. Yeah.
And like Bill said, that the plot's very similar to Night of the Creeps. But also Grant's transformation into the monstrous form is similar to Seth Brundle's transformation in Cronenberg's The Fly.
Oh yeah. That movie's so fucking awesome.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
And Bill, I think you touched on this too when like towards the end of the movie when all of the characters that are possessed by these worm creatures start to morph or meld into one thing. That was also like Brian Yuzna's Society, where there was the shunting, I think it was called.
Mm-hmm.
In that movie. Rob Zombie had a cameo in this, which I guess he was the voice of Grant's doctor, Carl, I think. And then Lloyd Kaufman also had a cameo in this. He was the sad drunk at the police station.
Oh, yeah.
Which Lloyd Kaufman, for those who don't know, he, of course, founded Trauma Pictures or Trauma Entertainment. He directed The Toxic Avenger, which at one point, the chick with the baby that ends up, she becomes the big giant woman that bursts. I think that's the point of the movie, too, is that these things get into you, right? And you can't stop eating meat. So you keep eating humans and animals and stuff, and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then, boom, you turn into these worms,
Yes, thank you for reminding me of that. That grossed me out so freaking much. It's like, it's one of those things I just can't handle is like people eating people. And like, I know like every time there's a zombie movie, I'm fine when they're being chased. But as soon as a zombie takes a bite out of somebody, I'm like, I can't look. And I'm okay with monsters eating people, but I don't know. And that the whole gross factor of them eating raw meat and stuff in this movie, that just turned my stomach. I couldn't. That was not
like the neighbors' pets and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a little bit too much carnage. I don't know. I guess I'm sounding like I don't really. I feel like for a lot of these movies that we're talking about today, I'm like, it was too gross for me. But I'm fine with gross stuff. It just particular things kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and it was just too much. Like there was a scene that went on for like 60 seconds, and it was just them shoving meat into their faces and stuff. And I was like, I can't. I got looked away. I was like, I can't watch this.
There's a great scene like that in Messiah of Evil.
Oh yeah,
in 1973, where Anitra Ford, she's walking into a supermarket and it's everywhere is strangely deserted. And she finds like everybody in the town in the supermarket in front of the meat case,
Yeah.
like just shoving all this raw meat into their mouths and eating it. And then like she just gets this look on her face, and all of a sudden they all turn and look at her. She becomes their next meal.
Christ.
The high school in the town that this takes place in is called the Earl Bassett High School, and that was Earl Bassett was from Tremors. That was not Kevin Bacon's character, but what's his name?
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, Earl. Right.
Yeah, Earl. I can't think of his name. The actor.
What's the actor's name there?
He was in.
I can see his face.
Will Williams. You know, it'll come.
What's the guy's name? I gotta look it up now.
All right.
I don't know either.
The opening. I know Fred Ward. Thank you.
Fred
Thank
Ward.
you.
Thank you.
But then the opening of the movie when what was it? The dude had the stick, and it was the mayor, I think. Or no, was it Grant? It was Grant. He had the stick. That reminded me of the Blob. You know, I was like, no, don't poke it. Don't poke the meteor.
I know. What are you doing? You dumb fuck! Like, get away from it.
Saw
like
the
goes,
Blob. He
and,
didn't watch
opens up
horror
and points.
movies.
Right. He didn't watch horror movies.
Yeah, he didn't watch horror movies. But he's like, what is that? And then like, what? And then this thing points up right at him, and he's like, what is that? Let's get closer to it. Like, you dumbass. And then the woman just stands there while he's like convulsing and falling on the ground, and then he seems completely dead, and then he gets up again, and she's still trying to talk to him. I'm like, run, you idiot. Like, they don't watch horror movies.
And she's the one with the baby. And when she's with the baby at one point, she's watching The Toxic Avenger, which was, of course, a Lloyd Kaufman film at one point. I guess in the script, her character was called Brenda. And in the script, she's supposedly the niece of Randy Flagg, who was Randall Flagg was a bad guy in a bunch of Stephen King novels, including the So I thought that
including the what? I'm sorry.
Stand.
Stand.
Yeah. But I thought this was funny. I found this on I think it was IMDb. Nathan Fillion recalled that James Gunn told him, well, we're making a funny movie, but we're not making a comedy. Excuse me. From that point forward, Fillion better understood the tonal balance needed to aim for.
I really like the very beginning where they show like this meteorite coming toward the planet, and then they show Fillion and who's kind of sleeping with his hat over his face, and this old other cop in the passenger seat of the car, with the speed gun, and he's like, a bird flies by and he clocks it with the gun, and he's like, 21 miles an hour flying. Is that what you would have thought? And he's like, he's trying to like ignore him, and then he like kind of pulls his hat up, and he's like, oh, really? That's fascinating. I'm gonna. And while they're doing nothing, while he's clocking a bird behind them in the distance, the meteorite hits the ground and they don't even notice it. Like,
no one ever sees the meteorite fall except
dark.
For like two teenagers.
Yeah, like even in the rearview mirror, he doesn't see this blaze of orange in the middle of the night because just nothing happens in that town, so they're not alert.
Oh my God. I love that. I thought that was hilarious. And like you said, when Nathan Fillion goes, holy shit.
Yeah.
And there was another one too. When they first see Grant as he's transforming, he's running through the field. He's like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah. Which is great, because that's what you'd say. That's what I would say. What the fuck was that? Yeah.
But there was, I thought there was interesting heart in the film too, though, where, there was just enough of it. Like when the young girl asks Nathan Fillion if he likes Starla, and he answers her by not answering her. And he just kind of makes a look and then runs off, which, said he did like her. But I thought that was great. Like it was a great storytelling moment without having to have dialogue,
Yeah.
Of course, he doesn't hesitate to shoot the mayor when he turns. It was a douchebag.
I always love that in movies where there's like, as long as it's not going to be confusing to the audience, like less is more when it comes to dialogue sometimes, because, you know, unless you're somebody like me who can't shut up, you know, like most people don't explain things in, you know, excessive detail.
Right.
They just kind of, you know.
Right. And of course, the end song was called "Baby I Love You" by the Yahoos, and I just remember the line because I always watch stuff with the subtitles on, so I kind of caught it even if I didn't hear it, and it was like, "I love you, just leave me the fuck alone."
What was the song that they were playing? Some Air Supply song in the "This Is Our Song, Honey."
Oh yeah. It was Oh, I can find that in a second. It was I was just thinking that song was just running through my
They
head.
played it a few times in the movie too.
Was it "I'm All Out of Love"?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're good.
I'm all out of love. I'm so lost without you.
Yeah.
Apparently that song got some flack because it copied another song, which I'm trying to remember what song that was. Let me see if I can find it real quick here. Don't mind me, people. Folks.
Was that one of their songs they did with Jim Steinman?
I think so.
The producer?
Yeah. He did a couple Air Supply songs. I think that was one of them.
When I was in high school, I had like, or not, maybe around high school ish time, I had like a greatest hits CD by them. And then I was like, after a while, I was like, why am I keeping this CD of like sappy
Air Supply?
sappy, drippy, like, I think it was like one song that I really liked by them, and the other ones that I recognized because I had heard them on the radio, and I was like, "Oh, you know what it was? It was one of those CD clubs where you sign up and you get like."
Of course, yeah. They sent you something that you didn't want and made you pay for it.
Right. But also at the beginning, you get like 15 free CDs if you sign up, and I think I was like, I had 14, and I was like, that one too. Yeah.
That's
Air Supply. I remember the one that they did that was Steinman was "Making Love Out of Nothing at All." That was a Jim Steinman song.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, it was no, it was "Every Woman in the World" was the song.
Oh, "Every Woman in the World," yeah.
And
Yeah, I was wrong.
Every woman in the world to me. Yeah.
And I guess Nathan, what was it? Nathan Fillion asked why that was the song was their, you know, Grant and his wife's love song, and James Gunn said, "Frankly, I find it creepy." I'm not saying I don't like the song, but yeah, I just think it's creepy. But I guess it was this was the controversy. And I'm reading this right from IMDb, but it said, incidentally, "Every Woman in the World" was released in 1980, 2 years after Shaka Khan. Shaka Khan. Shaka Khan's iconic disco anthem, "I'm Every Woman," which wound up being the Oprah Winfrey theme song. Most people, in fact, think the Air Supply song is a ripoff or surely inspired by the Shaka Khan hit, since the lyrics are almost identical.
The lyrics are identical? Oh, okay.
Apparently, I don't know. I never think that deeply.
If it was just the title, I would have been like, but yeah, if the lyrics are identical or almost identical, then.
Oh my God. But yeah, I mean, you know what? You know, love it or hate it, I think this movie is a fun watch. At least you should at least see it once. So Michael, give us your final thoughts on Slither from 2006.
Oh, okay. I will. One more quick thing that I really loved was in the bathroom scene when the whatever, and the girl's in the tub and the thing comes. There's I don't know if there's more than one sluggy thing, I think at some point, or I don't remember. And there's one like on the floor of the bathroom, and she grabs a curling iron and like it's burning hot because it's been plugged in, and she like cooks the thing, like just pushes it down, like it like bubbles over, and like, yeah, that was really good.
I think, like, that's the one she rips out of her mouth. It was trying to get into her mouth.
That's right. She pulled it out. Yeah. It was like, I love it when people use what's around them. You know what I mean? Like, just grab a weapon, grab something that could be a weapon, you know, find something and use it. Final thoughts. I love a lot of the people in it, but for me, this movie was just too much gross shit and not enough, I don't know, real story. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it, but that's my final thought.
It's not one of my favorites. You know, it was a watch once. kind of thing for me. It's not that I have an objection to the content, because actually, if you described this movie to me, I would be like, yeah, hell yeah, I'm gonna see that movie. But like I said, I ignored it theatrically, and I only saw it on home video like maybe a year after it came out. So I wasn't particularly interested in this movie at all. Even though I liked it when I saw it, if this movie had come out in 1976, I would love it and it would be my favorite film, but it would have looked like a 70s movie. And the reason that I don't really go for a lot of these throwback films, like, I think you said that this was an homage to 80s horror movies.
Right.
Um, so, it doesn't really move me. I'd rather see an 80s horror movie than watch this one.
I can see. I can see that. I love this movie. This time around, I loved it more than I had before. I had seen it in the theater. Oh, where's a puppy?
That's Vivi. She's such a camera hog. She had to come make an appearance on this show.
It's adorable.
But I thought it was hilarious and fun, while simultaneously being creepy and scary. I mean, I have witnesses that can attest to the fact that I was hiding under the blanket at certain parts of this movie towards the end. I mean, I recommend it if it's, if you're into these creepy, slimy movies, it does, like Michael said, you have to have a certain stomach for some of what they portray in here. But Nathan Fillion completists really should see this movie, I think.
Yes.
So, folks, that was wicked fun. Enjoyed talking about these movies. And if you can, please leave a comment. I know a couple people have left comments on our YouTube page. They'll be up, leave a comment below the video, or our Facebook page, which is Fright Lounge on Facebook, if you don't already know. And Bill, well, first of all, if you want to chime in and tell us what you thought about our films, you want to make some recommendations, email us at havenpodcasts, plural, @gmail.com. And Bill, can you tell the folks where to find you online?
You can go to driveinasylum.com, and that'll show you where you can purchase Drive in Asylum, my fanzine that I publish. And it'll also connect you to my other presences online, my social media, and my YouTube channel, Groovy Doom, where subscribe there. And also a blog that I write that's also known as Groovy Doom. So all my links are on there.
Awesome. And IMI shows, The East Meets the West, Then Is Now a Podcast, and the Cult Movie Lounge can be found at havenpodcasts.com, again, plural. And if you haven't had a chance, check out the films that we talked about today: Shivers, Slither, and Blue Monkey. And we'll see you next month, which next month we're going to be talking about season 3 of the Doctor Who spinoff Torchwood, which is only 5 episodes. It's called Children of Earth. You really don't have to have watched any other stuff except to just know that the main character, Captain Jack Harkness, is immortal. But it is hands down, in my opinion, probably the best TV that you'll ever watch in your life. So I highly recommend checking that out. It's on HBO Max, at least as of now, the beginning of March in 2023. March, because I'm from Boston.
That almost seems like a challenge. Like what you said was so hyperbolic. Like it's the best 5 episodes of TV you'll ever watch. Like, okay, now I have to watch it either way, just to like find out if do I agree with that or not.
I can't help it. That's just how I feel about Children of Earth.
No, I know that's cool.
All right, so I'm going to share this the screen again, and then we're going to be done, folks. Thank you very much.
Yeah, definitely send us suggestions, because we want to talk about stuff that you guys want to hear about.
Absolutely.
Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
All right. Now, how do I? All right,
Do we have to turn off our things, or is it?
No, I'm just gonna.